on this edition of Southern Newsweek. The Dunedin City Council votes to subsidise rents in community housing by $15. The Australian Prime Minister's visit to Queenstown could boost tourism. And 500 cows trek to their winter grazing paddocks. Kia ora, good evening, I'm Melissa Barton. Dunedin ratepayers will subsidise rents for community housing after a vote on the issue passed by the slimmest margin. Council flat rents are set at $135 a week, and there was a heated debate on who should pay for a $15 rent shortfall.
Social housing is proving a hot-button topic for Dunedin City councillors during their 10-year plan deliberations. Marie Laufiso reminding her fellow councillors of their responsibilities.
So please do not be picking and choosing. This suite helps us take care of the people. That's our job.
A $15 subsidy for the council's current stock of 936 units would cost $730,000 a year, equivalent to a rates rise of 0.45%. Councillor Jules Radich said a $15 increase is significant, but tenants aren't the only ones facing increased costs. However, Councillor Laufiso says the economic playing field is not level across society.
It's like, there, but for the grace of God go I. So stop picking and choosing about what you think is sustainable, because you haven't had the challenges, most of you. That I know that people, poor Pākehā people, Māori and Pasifika in particular, have had to live through, and our decisions affect them.
The Dunedin City councillors debated the issue on the first day of deliberations for the 10-year plan and voted 8-7 in favour of subsidising. Feedback from the consultation process was also in favour of the proposal, with 59% of submitters agreeing with subsidising rents. 10-year plan deliberations are scheduled to run daily and finish no later than close of business this Friday. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison's visit to Queenstown last week could provide a much-needed boost to the local tourist economy. That is the hope of local Mayor Jim Bolt, who sees opportunity in the visit to encourage visitors from across the ditch.
Wreaths were laid at Arrowtown's War Memorial this morning by New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern and visiting Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison. The solemn event marks the start of the second day of Morrison's visit to Queenstown. Queenstown Lakes Mayor Jim Bolt says having the two leaders visit the area will help turn a much-needed international spotlight onto the region, hopefully encouraging Australian tourists to visit.
As everybody knows, we need an economic boost. This will put us on lots of television sets in Australia and hopefully convince a whole lot of Australians to come to this part of the world.
Bolt says he's had a chance to talk to the Australian Prime Minister and renew an old acquaintanceship.
I did know him in the past. I worked with him at Tourism New Zealand back in the 1990s. So it's good to catch up with them on that, but I stressed how pleased we are to have Australians back in this part of the world, and I asked him to go back and spread the message even further.
And Bolt says there's every likelihood Scott Morrison will return to the south with his family in the near future.
Mrs Morrison is a big Queenstown supporter, and she tells me they'll be back for a holiday at some stage.
Scott Morrison and his wife Jenny are set to fly back to Australia later today. In Arrowtown, the South Today.
In our digital world, where news broadcasts are screened or streamed every minute of the day, a South Otago High School arts and graphics student decided to create a virtual newsroom for his school's internal news channel to use.
Broadcasting from South Otago High School. Year 13 graphics student at the high school, George Tabera, has undertaken a challenge as part of his design and visual communications standard. And at 17 years old, he's got the maturity to give credit where it's due.
To be honest, the idea came from my teacher when he said, hey, can you do this for the year? So it was just a matter of kind of figuring out kind of the leeway I had within that and just being as creative as I could to kind of put together something new and something fun for the school.
He's built a virtual studio to air the first of the school's Technology Masters Awards broadcasts for 2021. Working with 3D graphics software, Tabara designed the virtual newsroom, then produced, directed and edited the news video before uploading it to Yahoo. He says the whole process was a learning curve.
Honestly, I had no experience of Premiere Pro, the software that I use for this, but it was quite kind of back and forth throughout it and a lot of kind of frustration, but by the end I learned a lot and it was a great experience.
His work is set to be used at some school assemblies during the year, and Tabara is hopeful to move into the graphics industry in the future.
Hopefully something within the kind of graphic designy industry, maybe film, visual effects. It's kind of all up in the air, but hopefully through learning these kind of skills and the software and just making the most of these subjects, I could hopefully make something of that and not end up stuck at New World for the rest of my life.
He says creating the virtual set and taking care of the production work is a big task, but he's pleased it's leading him in a great career direction. In Balclutha, the South Today.
500 dairy cows were on the move near Clydevale last weekend as they were guided to winter grazing. A group of locals helped out with their annual shift by riding along on horseback to keep the dairy herd calm during the 20-kilometre trek.
This huge herd of dairy cows were on the move this weekend near Clydevale, making a 20-kilometre trek from Pannetts Road to winter grazing paddocks near Tuapeka Mouth. Clydevale farmer Lachlan Johnston was busy fencing off the more tasty verges to keep his 500 cows on track. He says the annual moving day is on his mind for about a month leading up to the actual event.
I think about it from about the start of May onwards. I dread it in a way, but I'm always happy about it when we get them there.
The route takes the cows through Clydevale and over the one-lane Clydevale Bridge, with Danica Tairua and friends on horseback volunteering to help their neighbours move their dairy herds during the National Dairy Moving Day. They say the presence of horses seems to settle the cows and keeps them on a straight and narrow path. This is the third year they've helped Johnston move his cows through the town.
If they were to cause a mess or havoc through Clydevale, then I'm on display as a farmer in quite a negative way, and it would be if we got it wrong, I'd make a fairly bad name for myself pretty quickly.
The 20-kilometre journey started at 7:45 in the morning and finished about 3 p.m. near Clydevale, the South Today.
Still to come on Southern Newsweek, a Dunedin teen wins an international songwriting competition, and Dunedin hosts a national cage bird show for the first time. So catch this and more after the break. Welcome back. A Dunedin father has made a special gift for his daughter, which is set to help her roam while solving her accommodation needs. It's mobile and has been described as one step up from tenting.
A caravan of love, or a caravan that love built. This small, glossy, black tear-shaped caravan has been built by Dunedin resident Dave Garrick and his daughter Amy.
We built the trailer completely from scratch, and then Dad and I kind of bought all the ply and put all the framework together, built the shape. My brother helped get the curve for us sorted properly.
Teardrop caravans first became popular in the 1930s, and their popularity surged again in the 1940s. The father and daughter team spent over a couple of years making the teardrop caravan.
So we started building it about 2.5 years ago, and literally we went to the steel place and got 8 metre lengths of steel, and then it's kind of turned into this 2.5 years later.
Amy Garrick is pretty stoked with her new mobile home and says it was meant to be a little larger and a bit trendier, but she's really happy with the shiny black outcome.
It was meant to be a tiny house, but teardrop was a lot smaller. I don't know if it was easier to make, but yeah, definitely a lot cheaper for me and definitely easier to move around.
And this modern take on an older idea offers more than its traditional counterparts, including a rooftop solar panel powering the caravan's internal lights, cell phone charger and chili bin. Amy Garrick is set to whisk the Dunedin-built caravan off on its first major road trip to Motueka today, with both father and daughter pleased with their efforts. In Dunedin, the South Today.
A bike park designed specifically for young children was opened in Wanaka last weekend. The new trail is designed to allow young riders to learn valuable off-road cycling skills.
Parents brought their children along for the opening of the new Bremner Bay Junior Bike Park off Aubrey Road in Wanaka. The project has cost $20,000 and was made possible through the efforts of a number of community groups, including Rotary, Dirt Dynamics, the Men's Shed and the Wanaka Community Workshop.
It's had a fairly long gestation period from what I understand.
2 years.
Started a couple of years ago, so a bit like mainland cheese, good things take time.
While there's no age restriction, the park's geared towards junior riders. The 2-year project was coordinated by the Queenstown Lakes District Council.
A couple of people to mention, one of them's Diana Manson here from the QLDC. Diana's tirelessly and persistently driven this project for a long time.
The track is designed to be a step between the flat and easy lakeside track and the more adventurous trails such as Sticky Forest. In Wanaka, the South Today.
A song spawned during a summer spent in the back of a car has become a hit with school pupils across the country. The 14-year-old writer entered her song in a nationwide competition and was pleasantly surprised when it took out the top prize.
A winning rendition of a winning song, which stopped the nation yesterday. Pupils at Dunedin's St Clair School taking part in a noon sing-along of 14-year-old Otago girls pupil Anna Feli's song Aroha I Aotearoa as part of the closing events of New Zealand Music Month. However, the songwriter says her winning song was born from boredom.
Yeah, because it was a really long trip because we went up to the top, so like the north of the South Island, and I got really bored because it was like 3 hours or something, and when I didn't know what to do, my sister was just doing her own thing, and so I took my ukulele out and I just kind of did a little quiet strumming and tried to find a few chords that would work.
Anna Fele says winning the nationwide hook, line and sing-along competition wasn't on her mind as she looked out of the car window strumming chords. And she became inspired as she looked at the scenery passing her by. A couple of weeks later, she tidied up the song and entered it in the competition. While she was blown away by taking out the title, she was completely taken aback by the kids' enthusiasm for her tune.
I thought it was honestly amazing. Like, I didn't think it was going to be like that. I thought maybe some of them would know, maybe 10 or something, and then maybe just 1 or 2 people on ukulele, but they were all really good.
As part of the prize, her song was recorded at Auckland's Roundhead Studios. Then pupils around the country used online resources provided by the New Zealand Music Industry Commission to not only learn to sing the song, but also to sign it using New Zealand Sign Language, as well as playing it on ukuleles. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Dunedin played host for the first time to a national bird show, attracting entries from bird fanciers across New Zealand. Unfortunately, the Canterbury flooding meant about a third of exhibitors left early to get back home before roads closed.
Over 1,000 people came through the doors during the weekend to see the first national poultry, pigeon and cage bird show ever held in Dunedin.
It's balloted for between the North and South Island and all the clubs around New Zealand. We got the ballot a couple of years ago and we've just put it on. It's unbelievable. This is the biggest show we've had in 45 years we've been going, and there's 1,550 birds.
The show attracted some of the biggest bird breeders in New Zealand, with 190 championship titles up for grabs.
once you've selected your breed, you need to understand the standard and breed to the standard. So if it's a big tail and the proper stance of the bird, then that's what you've got to look at. You've got to balance that within a pairing and try to maximise that.
Basically, you're competing against your best friends, and if you win, you definitely get good crowing points, not brownie points, crowing points.
Many bird fanciers often raise more than one species, always trying to get the best looking plumage to appear in their flock.
I've got budgies, I've got Yorkshire canaries, Gloucester canaries, what else? I've got colourfeds, borders, I've got all sorts of finches. I've got Gouldians, parrot finches, zebra finches, Bengalese, and the list goes on.
The show attracted bird fanciers from all across the country, but after flooding in Canterbury became an issue for some from out of town, a third of the show's 1,500 entries went home early, leaving at Saturday lunchtime. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Coming up on Southern Newsweek, the South Island Diving Championships are held in Dunedin and a BMX track in Invercargill may be given a spruce up, so see you after the break. Thanks for staying with us. One of Dunedin's earliest phone boxes has been refurbished by a handful of Tairi blokes who wanted to preserve a piece of the past. The Tairi blokes shed has restored the historical phone booth, which had deteriorated after almost a century out in the elements.
The Tairi Historical Society's museum near Outram has had its old red phone booth returned after workers from the Tairi Bloke Shed repaired the deteriorated corner posts and roof.
The timber had softened and deteriorated, so the Blokes Shed decided that they could do the job, and so we uplifted the whole phone booth and took it off to their sheds. And it's been a rebuilt, as you can see, with all the timbers replaced as necessary.
Beardsmore believes the phone box dates back to the early 1900s and saw service in Dunedin's Mance Street until the 1980s.
You've got to remember back in time the phone booths were of this shape, and then they had these more modern rectangular ones. So the old ones had deteriorated a little, so they were changing them. This one became surplus to requirements, and the society of today thought it would be a good repository out here at the park, seeing no one else wanted it.
The booth is fitted with a telephone dating back to the beginning of last century, so the visiting public can try and ring for an operator, but they probably won't get through.
People enjoy it and they photograph beside it, and the wee phone still works inside. When you ring, it makes the dial tone and the ringing sound, but it doesn't connect anymore.
The repairs were done at cost by the Tairi Bloke Shed. Near Outram, the South Today.
It's a long way from Mount Everest, but Haringa Singh Chandler is planning to use Dunedin's Baldwin Street to reach some dizzying heights this weekend in support of mental health. The 30-year-old Henley dairy farmer plans to run up and down Baldwin Street to the length of a marathon.
Every year, Tairi Plains dairy farmer Haringa Singh Chandler does a run in gumboots as a charity fundraiser. This weekend, he hopes to emulate Sir Edmund Hillary and knock the bastard off.
So I'm running the steepest straight up and down. So minimum my target is a marathon, that will be around 62 times. And going for the maximum, that will be averaged 135 up and downs.
As he said, a conventional marathon at 42.195 kilometres is his base target, which would have him running up and down the world's steepest street 62 times. He's done impressive runs like this before, including around 12 hours running all over Mount Cargill, with an interesting choice of food.
I run the Mount Cargill for 12 hours eating naan and curry.
Harjinder Singh Chanda hopes to run up and down Baldwin Street 135 times to raise awareness and funds for Mental Health New Zealand. He's due to start at 5:30 a.m. this Saturday, and if he goes for the full Everest challenge, hopes to be finished around 30 hours later. Singh Chanda says he knows when the marathon effort will be at the toughest.
I think it will be like from midnight to the morning when no one's around. Yeah, hopefully someone will come and get me through it. Yeah.
He says mental health, particularly amongst farmers, is a serious issue in New Zealand. Figures on the Mental Health Foundation's website show 685 people in New Zealand took their own lives between July 2018 and June 2019. If you or someone you know needs to talk, texting the government's 1737 number is a good start. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Divers from all across the country convened in Dunedin for the South Island Diving Championships last weekend. Local coach Bruce Meggitt says a lot of preparation is required to get to the stage of impressing the judges with multiple flips and rolls from a 10-metre high platform.
About 50 divers from all across the country are competing in the South Island Diving Championships at Moana Pool this weekend. Dive coach Bruce Meggitt says to be a good diver, you need to be able to know what position your body is in, even while doing a mid-air roll.
Having a good awareness of your body, so like a spatial awareness, knowing if you're up or down and being able to rotate and twist. Having a background in gymnastics or trampolining is always a good help.
This weekend's diving championships will see divers on the 1 and 3 metre high springboards, as well as the 5, 7.5 and 10 metre high platforms. Meggitt says divers need to build up their body strength to dive effectively and safely, especially from the high diving platform.
When you get to the harder dives and you're rotating and twisting more, it takes a lot of strength to be able to hold your position. Like when you're rotating, all the forces are trying to pull you apart, and so you need muscles and strength to be able to hold that. And then going in the water, off the 10 metre you're going 52 kilometres an hour when you hit the water. So a lot of strength when you hit the water so that you don't pull a muscle or move in a strange way.
Meggitt's organisation has proposed that the Dunedin City Council build a multi-purpose gymnasium at Moana Pool, because the gym is a major part of a diver's development and it will help the organisation host international events.
We have a gym complex as well through the Dunedin Gymnastics Association, so we also do practice on trampolines, and we have a dry board into a crash mat, so they get to practice their movements in there before we try and do them in the pool.
The South Island Diving Champs are set to run all the way till Sunday. In Dunedin, the South Today.
An Invercargill SIT student has launched a petition to restore an overgrown and unused BMX track in northern Invercargill, back to how it was in the 1980s. Megan Dawson says local school children would benefit from the bike park, as currently there are none in the area.
This neglected BMX track at Myers Reserve in North Invercargill could end up becoming a much appreciated bike park if Megan Dawson has her way.
60% of the school kids actually go to North Invercargill schools, and we don't have anything around the area that they can come and just ride their bikes and have fun. There's no scooter park or bike track, so this would mean heaps for the community.
She came up with a proposal to spruce up and re-gravel the track as part of her studies at SIT, and says it won't cost much to achieve.
Depending on the draining, there's not a huge cost in gravel, the dirt that could come in, and the labour. It's not a huge cost, probably under $30,000.
She says the Invercargill City Council and Southland Mountain Bike Club are both in favour of the project, and all she needs to do is raise the funds to restore the area to how she remembers it from her childhood.
Back in the 80s, going a few years back, we used to come here as kids, and the ramps had gravel and coming around and doing jumps, and it was a full BMX track, but over the years it's ground grass and it's been left to do its thing.
Dawson has started an online petition calling for the local council to help with funding the project. In Invercargill, the South Today.
And that wraps up this edition of Southern Newsweek. For the latest news from the Southern region, head online to odt.co.nz and follow Channel 39 on Facebook and YouTube. Ka kite anō.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.